From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. Over the weekend, I indulged in a little media. I watched the NBC Annie live. And I got to say, I'm a huge fan of NBC doing this. They've done it now for several years, the live musical. And it was great. I'm sure they're going to replay it again. That's typical. Like I said, they've been doing this for a few years. So I'm sure it's going to replay. When it does, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Some of my friends, my more cynical friends, were very critical of it without even watching it. And a lot of people just don't like the musical format. And I honestly, I'll never understand people who don't like this. It's beautiful. And Annie is a classic. It'll be revived for decades and decades. It's a beautiful piece of American musical theater in every respect. And they really pulled it off very nicely. The kid was great. The girl who played Annie, Selena Smith, did a great job. She was wonderful. And everything about it, the production, the sets, the chorus, the dancing, it was just outstanding. The three leads were Harry Connick Jr. as Daddy Warbucks, Tahari Henson as Miss Hannigan, and Nicole Scherzinger as Grace Farrell. Those are the three big adult leads. And I guess they pulled it off, but none of them are Broadway musical theater veterans. Harry Connick Jr., of course, fine musician. He's an actor as well. He's acted in television and in movies, and, he's a talented guy. And he for the most part, he pulled it off. So, high praise. I'd say the same about Henson and Scherzinger playing Hannigan and Grace Farrell. They pulled it off, but it was so striking to see the contrast and to hear the contrast between the chorus and the leads. Because the chorus, of course, were all Broadway veterans. And when they had, as choruses will have occasionally, somebody has a solo line or even maybe a solo verse in a big number. And you go, oh, that's what a musical theater artist can do. Oh yeah, it's this really stark reminder. They just completely outshined the leads. And again, I'm not talking about Annie right now. I think little Miss Smith did a really nice job. But it's just a shame that with all the wonderful things I can say, and there are wonderful things to say about the production, NBC, because of the nature of the beast, because money takes precedent over all else, you got to put big names in the lead, recognizable faces. You can't cast an experienced Broadway veteran in the role because it won't draw enough eyeballs. And that's a shame. So the leads pulled it off, but they couldn't hold a candle to the couple of solos that came out from the chorus. It's like, holy hell, there's a voice. That's how you sell a song. That's how you do this. It's amazing. Now, there are two really great kind of specialty roles in Annie, if you're familiar, and that's Rooster Hannigan, Miss Hannigan's brother. These are kind of the bad guys who try to steal Annie. And they've got this great number that they reprise a couple times, Easy Street. Easy Street. Great song. Anyway, Rooster Hannigan, played by Titus Burgess, and his partner in crime and girlfriend Lily St. Regis, played by Megan Hilty. Now, they are Broadway veterans, and they rocked it. They were so good. And again, to see the comparison between those who are trying and those who have the real experience and can really do it. So my criticism is not of these performers individually. They all did their best, and they mostly pulled it off. My criticism is of, as always, money, because it's the only reason they're there. So it'll come on again. They always do it. They do it live, and then they replay it. Sometime over the holidays, they'll replay it again. I recommend it. You should see it. And then also over the weekend, I saw The Beatles Get Back, which I also recommend. I don't have much to tell you there. There's reams and reams being written. I'll say this much. Number one, I vowed not to give the evil Disney Corporation a penny of my money. I was just going to forego seeing it rather than have to subscribe to Disney Plus. It's just a terrible way for the world to work. In order to see a film that I really want to see, I'm forced to subscribe to a streaming service that I just object to for many reasons, and especially because it's the Disney Corporation. But I caved. I gave in. I forked over $7.99 or whatever it is for a month, and I paid them. Okay, I'll pay $8 to see this movie because I really wanted to see it. And as soon as I saw it, I canceled my subscription. That was the only reason I decided to cave. I found out, I can cancel after just one payment, after just 1 month. All right, so I subscribed on Friday, watched it on Friday and Saturday, and then immediately canceled my subscription. Here again, you've heard all you need to hear about it. What shall I say? I thought this much. If I were in the Beatles' circle, if I were one of their buddies or part of the band, I think I really would have liked John and George. I think we would have been buddies. I would have really enjoyed them. And Ringo, too. I don't think I would have liked Paul. Paul's kind of an asshole. He's doing his best. They all just were doing what they did. They were following their own natures, which is what can any of us do? We follow our natures. And just sort of the cursory idea we have of the Beatles is that Paul was kind of bossy, and the other three got sick of him. And I think that kind of comes across in this film. Yeah, I definitely got that idea. He's a damn genius, as is John, as is George, each in their own right. So it was really fun to watch. Three geniuses at work. And Ringo is just the nicest, most solid guy you're ever going to see. The perfect drummer for that quartet. Barely says 2 words in the entire, 8-hour documentary. He just does not talk. He is the quiet one. They called George the quiet one. But Ringo just, he didn't speak. He didn't speak. John was alternately sullen and goofy. George was pretty quiet, except when he got real kind of upset and whiny about Paul trying to play dad all the time. It's 99% music. I mean, the conversations are really fascinating and interesting. In fact, at one point, it was like hidden camera. The Beatles knew that they were being filmed, of course. It was the whole point. They were filming a documentary on the recording of this album. So that, obviously they knew cameras were there. But a couple of the most interesting moments were when they thought the cameras were off. The other thing you're going to be disappointed in if you're hoping to see it, you don't really see the breakup of the Beatles. All the things we've read about, whether it's the new management, Klein is the guy's name, Alan Klein. Am I remembering that correctly? The guy who John brought in to manage the band, when at the time they were managing themselves, and then Paul became sort of the de facto boss after the death of Brian Epstein. And of course, Yoko is blamed, and So if you're a Beatles fan and you've read books about them, you know more about this than I do, and you already know a lot more than what you'll learn from the documentary. Just that little spoiler alert. You're not really going to see that. You're going to see George lose his patience and just walk out and say, you know what, that's it, I'm done. Because he's just had it with Paul bossing him around. It's not very dramatic, really. So if you're interested in really seeing documented on film the end of the Beatles, this isn't going to do it for you. A few interesting moments, but mostly just this sort of wonderful, fascinating look at them putting songs together. And that really is great, especially if you're a musician or if you're a Beatles fan, if you're a fan of their music. If you're strictly going in for the drama, you'll probably be disappointed. I'll just tell you that much. I had a couple thoughts about Yoko. I've always been a big defender of Yoko. I've got one social media friend who loves to make Yoko jokes. It's a whole cottage industry of Yoko Ono jokes and how badly she sings. And I've always been a great defender of hers because she's a fabulous world-renowned artist, and her so-called screaming is all part of her performance art, and I always defended her. But there are a couple of times in the film where she jumps onto a microphone and there's a cacophony going on musically, and she chimes in with her unique vocals. And it really is pretty ear-piercing. So I gained a little more understanding for those who joke about Yoko. It really is bloody awful. But that's on a very superficial level. In all of those hours of footage, unless Peter Jackson left it on the cutting room floor, there's not one single moment, not 1 second, where Yoko gets in the way. She's just there with her man, encouraging him, sitting close, giving support. She seems like a lovely person. At one point in the film, she's having this very engaging conversation with Linda Eastman, soon to be Linda McCartney, soon after that. And they're just talking very, friendly. So no more Yoko bashing, okay? But I was glad I saw it. I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about bad memes. The meme itself as a form of communication is really a tricky thing. On the good side, they can have this beautiful sort of haiku quality. They can impart truth, or at least something thought-provoking. They can be very positive. I've always been, since I was a kid, a huge fan of the single-panel cartoon, or even the 3-panel, the comic strip. In this great brevity, you can impart wisdom or humor or, again, something at least thought-provoking. It's a nice form. The problem with the meme, of course, is that it's so ubiquitous. Everybody shares them, and most people make them. I'll bet you've made a meme or two in your life, right? You've created one. You've been an original content creator of a meme. And therefore, most of them are awful. Because we're not all Charles Schultz. We're not all Gary Larsons. We're not all Thomas Nast, the great pioneer of political cartooning. No, we suck at it because we're amateurs. And because there's so many of them, it's like television. There's just too much. That's why most of it is horrible, with a few wonderful exceptions. And a bad meme will also provide the reader with confirmation for their bad ideas. Because they'll find one that agrees with them, or they'll find one that's so vague. Many of them they don't hit the mark, so you can read into it whatever you want. And since you and I talked about this a few episodes ago, the problem of having too much confidence. Ever since we had that conversation, I've been noticing it more and more. Like when you buy a car, all of a sudden out on the road, you start seeing more of those cars, right? That's a natural phenomenon. You become more aware of it. So you and I talked about false confidence, and I've been seeing it everywhere. I had a friend I was talking to the other day, and she was just so confident in her opinions. We were talking about, politics, cultural issues, and I had my opinions, and she had hers. But to be precise, we were talking about some transgender issues, which I was very quick to say, well, here's my opinion, but I'm not sure. I'd have to read a little more about it. I'm not an expert in the field. But from what I have read, this is what I think so far. I put it in those kind of terms. And she was just 100% confident. She gave me very bold and certain opinions with just no doubt at all. And I think we all do that too much. Here's an example. Let me read this to you. I came across this the other day. Finding yourself is not really how it works. You aren't a $10 bill in last winter's coat pocket. You are also not lost. Your true self is right there, buried under cultural conditioning, other people's opinions, and inaccurate conclusions you drew as a kid that became your beliefs about who you are. Finding yourself is actually returning to yourself, an unlearning, an excavation, a remembering who you were before the world got its hands on you. It's a quote by Emily McDowell. Now, you might hear that and think that makes pretty good sense. On first reading, I was sympathetic to this idea. But then I thought about it for a second. Unlearning. Yeah, we've been conditioned by the culture, by other people's opinions, by other people's conclusions. Many of them we learned as kids. So I'm sympathetic to this idea. But the problem is, it seems to discount the idea that we've also learned a great deal from culture. We've learned a great deal from other people's opinions. Hopefully, we've read some books. We've had some education. We've paid attention to the world. So yes, of course, we're a product of our culture, of our conditioning. But how does then that lead you to the conclusion that you should just jettison all of it and return to some state of nature, as this is suggesting? Remembering who you were before the world got its hands on you, what does that leave? What am I without the world? So even though on first reading I was kind of down with this, I thought about it for a second and realized it's just tripe. It's nonsense. And it's in quotation marks, and it's credited to someone named Emily McDowell. So there's an air of authority attached to it. I was curious because I never heard of Emily McDowell. She is a writer, illustrator, speaker, teacher, entrepreneur, and creative director of something called M and Friends. She's worked in advertising as a writer and creative director. And according to her Wikipedia entry, she grew a little frustrated with the banality of greeting cards. So she ventured out on her own, wrote a couple of books, and continued to create greeting cards. So, she's probably a fine person. I got nothing bad to say about Emily McDowell. But this is just a terrible way to communicate. And it's presented as wisdom. So that's one type. The great quote, designed to shape people's lives. And I think the people who read this kind of thing, too many of them take it as that, and without a critical eye. Another example, another meme in a different category, is this one I saw. It's a picture of, I don't know who this is. It's some old wise person. It looks like a Greek god or somebody. The big white beard, the big serious guy. A wise man once told his wife, ... nothing, because he was a wise man. Here's another category, this sort of soft misogyny. Oh, it's just a joke, the person who posts it will say. Yeah, it is. It's just a joke that reinforces the old stereotypes of the put-upon husband and the nagging wife. It's just the next step up from old Catskill comics telling wife jokes. These sort of stand-up comic man-woman comparisons been around forever. And you can name 100 different varieties. I saw another one that showed a map of a man shopping who walks into the entrance, goes right to his item, and then checks out and goes right out. And then the woman shopping, and there's this ridiculous swirl of lines going back and forth around the store. Yeah, these men-women quote-unquote jokes, yeah, they may seem harmless, but I'm just growing very, very weary of this soft misogyny, soft racism, soft homophobia in these so-called lighthearted jokes. And what better place than a meme to perpetuate this kind of thinking? So many would be, I can hear it now, so quick to defend. Oh, it's just a joke, lighten up. Yeah, it is just a joke. And in the entire scheme of things, it's not going to bring the world to an end. But it just points again to the inadequacies of the form, of the meme. I saw another post recently from a social media friend, and this doesn't fit the category of meme, but it's kind of related. Just the picture, the post. So it's a picture of her daughter standing by the door in her coat, looks like she's ready to go. And the comment reads, "My grown-up kid, business casual for her new job." And all the comments below are the jacket is amazing, looks awesome, all grown up, looking great. Everybody's so proud, gorgeous. She's going to do an awesome job. Everybody's so supportive. Well, the reason I mention it, I never in my life saw a more miserable person. This poor young woman is looking into the camera with daggers. She's off to her new job, and everything about her expression tells me she'd rather be going for root canal. She's absolutely dreading this experience. She has to have a job, so off she goes. But she is just existentially miserable. And the mom is so proud. Oh, look how pretty she is in her new coat. And I'm so proud of her that she has a job. We're so bad at this. Social media is such a wonderful opportunity, and we're all so bad at it. There's another one here. It takes the form of a 2-panel cartoon. The first one, the top caption says, "True thing." Drawing of a guy sitting at his desk thinking, "If I tell the truth about everything, I will offend people." And in the next panel, which is labeled at the top, "False thing," he says to himself, "Therefore, if I offend people, I must be telling the truth." And the bottom caption is, "Among scholars, this is known as the YouTube Commentators Fallacy." So this is an example, I think, of a pretty good meme, again, in the form of a 2-panel cartoon. If I tell the truth about everything, I will offend people. Therefore, if I offend people, I must be telling the truth. All right, well, there's a mistake in logic that many people make. So pretty good. It states its point very clearly. I think it makes an important point that more people need to consider. So in my little presentation here of bad memes, I point this one out as a pretty good one. But there's a problem. Many of the commentators, because as always there's a thread of comments, many of them don't get it. They're actually defending the mistake. One commentator, Harvey, is very quick to point out the so-called other side to this. "Oh, well, you just want to believe experts." Others try to be funny. "Oh, I'm offended by this." Or others just dismiss it. So what? Wesley says, "Only the truth is censored." Jamie comments, "Looks like something someone who's been offended would post." So there are quite a lot of comments here that either don't get it or literally want to argue against it. Another one says, "I like offending others. Therefore, I must be a YouTuber? Don't work both ways." Can't quite follow the logic on that one. And that's not everybody. Others are supportive, and many of them point out, this is one I hadn't heard of. It's formally this is known as the fallacy of affirming the consequent. The formula going, if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. Of course, that's a logical fallacy. So yeah, there's some support and there's some actual kind of interesting explanations about the formal definition of this fallacy. But I include it here in the conversation only to point out the inadequacy of this type of communication. And since we all live in this world now, it takes a new type of media literacy. If you're going to consume this stuff, and especially if you're going to share it or create it, I would hope that we do it with a little more care. Whether it's something like that example, a pretty good point, I thought, but presented with such brevity that it allows for people with bias against it to be unmoved. Or the example of the soft misogyny. A wise man once told his wife nothing because he was a wise man. If you're just too easygoing about this, and if right now you're thinking I'm being a killjoy, I'm all for funny, I'm all for humor, I'm all for social commentary. And if you really do believe that men and husbands are put upon and that wives are nags, if you really believe that, then that's called free speech. Okay, fine. That's kind of not my fight right now. It's another argument to have, and I'd be glad to have it. But right now I'm talking about the more unconscious sharing of this kind of communication. If you think it's misogyny to generalize that men are put upon and women are nags, then don't share it. And in our new world of communication, we have to step up our game here. We have to become more media literate as media changes. Because if you don't, then you become a carrier. Don't be a carrier. You don't want to be a carrier of a virus, right? Some terrible virus going around. You might become a host to that virus. Maybe you never get any symptoms. You never know you had it. But in the meantime, you passed it to a half a dozen people. And then they in turn passed it to each another half a dozen. Pretty soon you're the carrier to hundreds of people. Well, the exact same thing is happening every day in media. And I'm just asking us to be a little more aware of it, to be a little more careful. Are you sharing negative thoughts? Are you sharing prejudice? This sort of soft bigotry that you don't quite recognize? Again, you don't show the symptoms yourself, but by sharing something that just seems like, oh, it's just a funny little joke, you're perpetuating. Don't share bad ideas. Don't share bigotry. Don't share fake news. Don't share diminished cultural standards. Why would you do that? So if you care about the great issues of sexism, of racism, of bigotry, of homophobia, or the great issues of fake news, that of course is one of the great tools of fascists, if you care about the great problems, do what you can at the micro level to, at the very least, not contribute to those problems. That's all I'm asking. And I really think we need to up our game in media literacy because I see it all the time. I see it every damn day. Countless examples of bad ideas, of fake news, of diminished standards, of bias and bigotry. I see it all the time. So let's see what we can do about raising the standard, raising the level of the meme. We are so far from the days of this being a fringe topic. It's not at all on any fringe. It's right at the heart and soul, right at the core of modern communication. And not only the standard meme, but that's why I included the picture of this poor woman posted by her mother. She's going off to this job that I could tell she's just dying inside. She can't stand the thought of it. And her mother is perpetuating these ideas. Oh, look, how every young person has to go out and earn a living. And look at how nice her new coat looks. So I include that. That's a form of a meme. This shorthand conversation we have with each other countless times every day. Or this other example of someone posting a quote from a damn greeting card writer and passing it off as wisdom of some sort of philosophy to live by. You want to live by the philosophy of a greeting card? Is that where you want us to level off here? Okay, that's where we are now. Let's do better. Let's just be aware of this. Let's share less. And when we do share, make it something you're proud to put out there. Let's do it more thoughtfully. That's all I'm asking. All right, there it is. Let's talk again tomorrow, as we do every day. I love you. I'm Charles Purcell.